This is Bobby Orr. He's a 3-time MVP and an 8-time All-Star. He had 6 straight seasons scoring over 100 points and is the only player to win 4 major NHL awards in one season. He revolutionized the game of hockey and did it all before hanging up the blades at the tender age of 30 years old. So, just how good was Bobby Orr actually? Bobby grew up in Parry Sound, Ontario. He was severely undersized as a youngster, but began playing hockey at the age of 5. He was small, but a gifted skater. By the time he was 14, a scout for the Boston Bruins made arrangements for him to play puck for the Oshawa Generals, a team in the Metro Junior A League. The Generals were funded by the Bruins at the time. The move allowed the teen to continue to live with his parents, but also develop his skills as a member of the Bruins organization. Orr played for Oshawa until he was 17. He was an absolute scoring machine, so needless to say, he was a highly sought after young man. He was actually the first player in hockey to demand a salary, rather than just accept a salary offered to him by an organization. Bobby Orr was a true pioneer in that sense. He teamed up with a lawyer named Alan Eagleson, and together they made history. When Bobby's body finally filled out, the young speedster stood tall at around 6 feet with a solid frame, just shy of 200 pounds. He had all the makings of a bona fide NHL star. Bobby was always on the Bruins' radar, and they made sure to secure him in 1966. The Bruins moved swiftly and signed him when he turned 18. Orr was excited to play for the Bruins, and right off the bat they made him the highest paid player in league history. The young phenom considered Boston to be the team of the future. He could see that they were a rebuilding franchise, and Orr really wanted to be a part of it. In 1966, Bobby Orr began his dominance over the NHL. In his first few preseason games, the Bruins actually tried him out at center due to his savvy offensive skills and knack for scoring, but that plan was quickly squashed as he proved to have undeniable defensive skills to match his offensive ingenuity. His toughness, his ability to clear out the front of the net, and block shots were second to none. It was ultimately decided that he would stay on the defensive side. Now, his rookie season was a little bit of a roller coaster. On one hand, Bobby had the best statistical season of any defenseman up until that point in the NHL. His 13 goals and 28 assists were good enough to win the Calder Trophy, a trophy awarded to the most outstanding rookie, or even made the second All-Star team. With the good, however, came the bad. The Bruins finished with 17 wins, 43 losses, and 10 ties overall. It was by far the worst record of any Bruins team that Bobby was a part of. He also missed 9 games with a knee injury, a reoccurring problem that haunted him throughout his career. In season number 2, Bobby was again hampered by knee injuries. He was only able to lace up for 46 games thanks to his pesky knees. The team, however, was producing a much better product on the ice, and the attendance was on the rise at the Boston Garden. The recent additions of Phil Esposito, Ken Hodge, and Fred Stanfield, whom they acquired from the Blackhawks in a blockbuster trade, were paying off handsomely. The team won 37 games that year, a big improvement from the 17 wins in the year prior. And despite Bobby's nagging injuries, he managed to win the Norris Trophy as the league's best defenseman and made the first All-Star team. But more importantly, the Bruins qualified for the playoffs for the first time in nearly 10 years. The city was in jubilation. Unfortunately, the Bees were promptly swept by the Montreal Canadiens. It was a successful season and a great learning experience for Bobby and a young feisty Bruins team with championship aspirations. During the 1968 season, Bobby's game continued to flourish. It was his 3rd season as a pro, and he doubled his point total from the year prior, finishing with 21 goals and 43 assists. At the time, these were new records set in the NHL. The Bruins had a masterful season and even won their first playoff matchup against the Maple Leafs. The win came at the cost. Orr was knocked out unconscious by Pat Quinn in a brutal open ice hit during Game 1. Orr was forced to miss some time, but they were ultimately able to knock out the Maple Leafs. The second round was less than ideal as they were cut down by their nemesis, the Montreal Canadiens, yet again. Now, the following season was really the start of something special. Not only did Bobby help Boston win the championship, he once again doubled his point total from the season prior by potting a resounding 33 goals to go along with 87 assists. The 120 points were nearly a league record. The Boston Bruins continued to make key additions. These moves helped catapult Bobby's Bruins to win their first Stanley Cup since 1940. The iconic goal of Bobby flying through the air as he scored the game-winning goal in overtime is forever enshrined in the statue outside of TD Garden in Boston. The renowned moment capped off a sweep of the St. Louis Blues, and the Superman-like leap will forever be remembered as one of the greatest goals in NHL history. The magic continued to ooze from Bobby and the Bruins. They finished the 1970 season with a remarkable 57 wins and 14 losses. They set all kinds of offensive records, highlighted by Orr's 37 goals and 102 assists for 139 points, as well as Phil Esposito's 76 goals and 76 assists for 152 points. Orr finished with a plus 124, which stands as an NHL record today. Good luck beating that one. His 102 assists were a league record, a record that held up until a young man named Wayne Gretzky came along. Disastrously, the black and gold were once again upset in the first round by who else? You guessed it, it was the Montreal Canadiens yet again. The Canadiens utterly dominated the sport of hockey for decades. The 50s, the 60s, and the 70s all saw the Habs win a plethora of championships. They were a constant thorn in the side of Bobby Orr and the Boston Bruins. Now, during the offseason, Bobby inked himself a sweet new deal. The deal was set to pay him $200,000 per season over the next 5 years. The deal made Orr the first $1 million contract in the NHL. The superstar defenseman responded nicely to his flashy new contract, spearheading the big bad Bruins team. He tallied 37 goals for a 117-point total in the regular season. Luckily for the Bruins fan, the team drew the Maple Leafs in round 1 and not the powerhouse Canadiens, who lost in round 1 to the Rangers. This opened the door for the Bruins to win their second Stanley Cup in 3 years. For his efforts, Orr was named the winner of the Conn Smythe Trophy for a second time, becoming the first person ever to accomplish this. Since then, it has only been done by 3 other forwards and 2 goalies. The forwards are Mario Lemieux, Wayne Gretzky, and Sidney Crosby. The 2 goalies were Patrick Roy and Bernie Parent, some pretty decent company. After being named playoff MVP for a second time, things began to unravel a little bit for the Hall of Famer. Although Bobby still managed to accumulate over 100 points, he was forced to miss more time with a bulky knee. And on top of that, the team was mired in a month-long slump, and Harry Sinden was forced to make a coaching change during that season. Let's not get it wrong, number 4 still had an impeccable regular season, but the Rangers eliminated the Bees in 5 games, and they held Orr to just 2 points in the series. It was the same song and dance the following year. The 1973-74 season, Orr racked up another dazzling display of stats. His 32 goals, 90 assists, and plus 84 were nothing to sneeze at. Bobby, along with the team captain Johnny Busick, led the team all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals. They were ultimately defeated by the Flyers in an epic battle that came down to the final seconds. Orr's last full season with the Boston Bruins was the 1974-75 season. And oh man, was it a memorable one. The guy managed to break his own defensive scoring record by pouring in 46 goals and accompanying that with 89 more helpers. His efforts were mostly in vain as the Bruins fell to the Blackhawks in the best-of-3 playoff series, 2 games to 1. At this point, in what should have been the prime of his career, Bobby's knees were running on empty. He got just about everything he could from his moneymakers. They just couldn't withstand the beating he was putting on his lower body with his aggressive style of play. The Bruins were unwilling to sign a hobbled defenseman who could barely walk on some nights. At least, that's what Bobby was told by his partner Eagleson. Bobby in turn signed to the Chicago Blackhawks, a contract signed for 5 years and would pay the legendary defenseman $3 million to be paid over 30 years. This was money that Orr never accepted since he knew he wasn't going to be able to hold up his end of the bargain. A classy move for a man that displayed good character his whole life. Devastatingly, this was the beginning of the end of Bobby Orr's playing career. He was only healthy enough to play in 26 games for Chicago over the next 2 seasons. His knees were just no longer functional. Today, after having double knee replacement, Orr is able to walk pain-free, something he struggled with in the past. Bobby Orr was a genuine trailblazer. He completely reinvented the game with his combination of speed and skill. His career was cut short because of his aggressive style of play, but that's what made him special. The guy posted 9 hat-tricks in a brief career as a defenseman. The next closest guy is Harry Cameron, who played in the 1920s. Harry somehow managed 6 hat-tricks, while Paul Coffey and Dennis Potvin each nabbed 5 hat-tricks in their careers as defensemen. Number 4 was really in the class of his own. Orr has the second best career plus-minus ratio. He finished with a plus 582. Larry Robinson is the only person ahead of him at plus 722. Ray Burke, Wayne Gretzky, and Bobby Clarke are the only other players to finish their careers above plus 500. The difference between Orr and the other guys on this list is incredible. Orr only played in 657 career games. All the other men played in well over 1,100 career total games. If you make the games more equal, Orr's ratio blows the competition out of the water. So just how good was Bobby Orr? He was simply the most dominating player that had ever played the game of hockey, and his career was cut short, but his imprint on the game will last forever. Do you know who else had an incredible career? Mario Lemieux. Be sure to check out this video above to get a glimpse into one of the greatest hockey players that has ever lived.